So, when did counseling stop being about problem solving? Well, not anymore. Introducing solution-focused counseling with the unlicensed counselor. And now, here's your host, Steve Moak.
Well, hello and welcome to another episode of The Unlicensed Counselor, Take 2. Thanks, everybody in studio here. My name is Steve Moak. I am The Unlicensed Counselor. As always, so grateful to be here and getting more especially or gratefuler, right? Is that a term? Because, boy, are we hitting our stride out here in Scottsdale, Arizona. As the temps cool down, everybody heads outside. The only downside I can see is our lovely friends, as we refer to them as the snowbirds out here in the desert. All of our friends from all over the country. We got a lot of people from Canada that cruise on down here as well and make their second home. But hey, the more the merrier. We love it. I know why you love it. It's because it's beautiful out here. You know, I just started taking my daughter. We went out. I think hiking season has officially begun. Running season, anything season-wise that is now outside, we now have the green light to go ahead and do it. Those mornings are beautiful. And one thing that comes to mind on the gratitude train is I always like to start out my episodes by talking about, something that I am especially grateful for. I'm going to go physical therapists, right? I was actually at a physical therapist office this morning. I've been battling just a little strain. I think it's an overuse injury, but how great is it that you can show up and have somebody start to work on you and try and heal some of these things. I'm one of these guys, I don't know if it's like an old school kind of mentality or something like that, where it just takes me forever to get into a doctor. And it's something that I actually, now that I've had this kind of nagging injury for a while, I'm like, I need to get better at this, right? Of finding something and not waiting for it to just resolve. I'm 44 years old now, I'm not 24 years old anymore. Let's get in there and do it. And I think the same thing applies. There's probably a lot of folks out there, guys and gals across that are hearing this right now. If you got something going on, go into the doctor, to the urgent care, to the physical therapist, whoever, make that appointment. I just did the dentist, all that kind of stuff, right? So I don't know. I was thinking about that. I was in there and they were stretching me and working on me, giving me some new exercises and things like that. I'm like, boy, I am grateful that folks like this exist in the world and can help get this bag of bones back on the road as well, too. So, all right, enough about that nonsense. Hey, I want to thank our sponsors as usual today, our friends at ShareTech, right? Google ShareTech. You're going to find the world's most accurate and comprehensive drug and alcohol screen. If you're in the market for this, use the same ones that some of the leading treatment programs and outpatient programs in the country use, right? They wouldn't trust their results to any Amazon type of test or, pee in a cup type of result that you hope that strip works, that was manufactured in China and has no quality control around it. Go and find and pick up a test from ShareTech. I promise if you're in the market for the world's most accurate drug test, ShareTech is going to be the one that I would trust and do trust my loved ones as well, too. And by the way, I've used that screen myself, right? I take it regularly. For not because I'm worried about if I'm using it or not. I like to just take it, and then I'll be telling my family and things that, hey, I just, use this as well, too. It's kind of one of these things where I can just kind of prove it out to the world. When you got nothing to hide, a drug test really isn't a big deal, right? So, I don't know, just something I kind of do. Not all the time, but, just a thought I throw out there. As always, our friends over at Easy Sheets. Go to easysheets.club. Look, fall is here, is starting to cool down a little bit. Maybe you want to mix up those sheets. Maybe you want to get a little different look and feel in that room. Go to easysheets.club. It starts at $50. Sign up for that subscription. You and your loved one are going to thank me later. Again, it's 2024, folks. Let's start. It's just about 24, by the way. Let's start thinking about sheets a little bit differently. You can do better. Go to easysheets.club. I promise you're going to like that professionally cleaned and pressed sheet sent right to your front door. Last but not least, I want to mention, go to @HardStopOfficial, right? That's our the Youth Drug and Alcohol Prevention Program that I've been working on the side. We just got some really, really cool shirts in. If you donate $30 to our organization, we'll actually ship you out one of our T-shirts that was designed by a really cool designer, Callie Doso. Go to thestopstartshere.org. Find out about what we're doing. Follow us on social media. If you donate $30, we're going to send a T-shirt right to your front door. It's cool stuff, too. It's pretty cool. It's kind of like almost a lifestyle brand that we're building on top of a drug prevention program as well. So want to talk about something a little bit different today. And this is one of these, where I made the title of the episode kind of before I actually made the episode. The Screen Time Dilemma, Finding Balance in the Digital Age, right? You got that one, Robin, for post-show. We can weave that in there. I don't know if all those characters will fit in. But really, the point is, and I got some feedback post last show that we did, just talking about the impact of social media, right? I mean, obviously, it's a discussed topic, but it's one that we haven't really touched on here at the Unlicensed Counselor. And I have strong thoughts and opinions on the matter, and I used to have even stronger thoughts and opinions on the matter, candidly, but now as someone who's growing not only the Unlicensed Counselor following using social media extensively, and the youth drug abuse prevention program that we're doing that is entirely social media based, I do spend a lot of time on these platforms. That's TikTok, that's Instagram, that's Facebook, that's YouTube. I mean, all of these things, like I am more versed now than I think that I've ever been, and really understand the power, right? The power of these platforms from a kind of a sales and marketing perspective. But I also see how addictive it can be, right? I see, because I find myself at night, I usually kind of give myself about an hour from, if I get in bed around 9 something, I'll give myself about an hour to, watch whatever's on my DVR or Netflix or something like that. And in the last several months, I found myself, I think people call it the doom scrolling a little bit more. It's not so much doom, but it's, checking some of the apps, checking some of my posts, checking some of the likes, the comments, the statistics based on all the different accounts that we're running. And it was innocuous at first, but now I find myself oftentimes, I don't know if compelled is the right word, but it's like, okay, let's get in there. Let's check it out. Let's see what's going on. Let's see who's saying what. Let's see. Like it starts to consume you, right? And I'm using this in a professional way. Now I'm trying to put my mind in the shoes of, a teenager who's maybe grown up with this a little bit more, obviously, than I have, and just being like, wow, this really is going to have a significant impact on your life. So there's just a couple different points that I want to talk through on kind of the impact of social media. And the first one I want to talk about is kind of body image, right? In the world of Kardashians, in the world of Instagram models, in the world of thin and beautiful and fake and parts and this and plastic surgery, I think this is really setting people up with some unrealistic standards, right? And I think it's contorting people. I think, we live here in Scottsdale, Arizona. How do I want to phrase this? Probably should have thought about this one before these words come out of my mouth. But there are a lot of fake things around here in Scottsdale, Arizona, from people who kind of show the world or try and show the world that they have money, or fake body parts. And yes, I know we all think women at first, but there's plenty of guys that are getting the plastic surgery done on various things as well, too. In fact, I think, back in the day, I think Scottsdale was one of the cities that they coined the $30,000 millionaire terminology around. I don't know if maybe we can bring that back on the Unlicensed Counselor. But that was like people going around flashing cash like they have it, going out to the bars and the nightclubs and all that are, again, right over my shoulder here in Scottsdale, when really, they don't have that much dollars and they're just racking up debt and debt and debt. So, but, that just ties into the fakeness of it. But really, the body type image is really the first point, and how the psychological effects of comparing oneself to kind of these standards that you're seeing out there, or what you perceive as the standards, and just really how unrealistic those beauty standards are, right? I mean, it really is something. And I'll even go out, if I'm out at a restaurant or dinner or bars and social scenes, and you're like, wow, all these people are done up. And then you got to remember, I mean, that is makeup, that is heel, that is clothing. I mean, there is a lot that kind of goes into that. That's not what people really, really look like. So just trying to make sure that we understand inherently, what you're seeing and what really is kind of unrealistic as well, too. Right? These could be, maybe you're following some of these fitness models, and now you're starting to feel inadequate about your own body. You're having decreased self-esteem. And I actually went out and pulled some statistics specifically on this topic that I'm going to cite throughout the show today. And there's one study from the National Eating Disorders Association, which revealed that 70% of teenage girls and 30% of teenage boys use social media as a source of thinspiration, right, which potentially contributes to poor body images. Thinspiration, I thought that was a great term. I've heard that before, but I haven't heard it used in a while, too. So, I mean, that is significant. 70% of teenage girls and 30% of boys, right? And I will say, I think it'd be easy just to kind of slam teenage girls and things like that because it seems so common. I go to a gym and I see the teenage boys in the locker rooms taking pictures of themselves, flexing. I see them up in like the general lifting area as well too, flexing and staring at themselves in the mirror and doing the poses and things like that. And I sit here and scratch my head. I mean, if my dad ever saw me doing that when I was 15 years old, there would have been a talking to in probably a much sterner way. And so I'm just saying it's not just the girls, right? I know this statistic cites that thinspiration and 70% of teenage girls, but let's make sure that we're talking to our sons as well too that are out there and making sure that we're kind of covering what's realistic from what they see on a body image perspective on social media. So the next point I wanted to talk about is just the social comparison and how it impacts self-esteem, right? So if you're constantly out there comparing your lives to others, I really just feel strongly that this is going to negatively impact your self-esteem, right? So what are some ways that you could potentially contribute against this? I'd like to see you be able to think about your own personal experiences and have some gratitude, right? You know that I always like to talk about some gratitude, but instead of constantly going on and comparing what I have or what I don't have to what that person has, I think that we could also limit social media use and focus more on real life connections, aka people, friendships, interpersonal, right? Going out to the gym, going out for a cup of coffee, going to see a movie, go for a walk together, make a phone call, and just talk to somebody versus just having to do everything via social media, right? Another statistic I saw when it comes to social comparison and self-esteem, there was another survey that states that 60% of users admit to comparing their own life to others on social media platforms. So over half of us are going on there going, look at what they have, look what I don't have, right? And if you're constantly seeing your friends or your peers' achievements, that's just going to lead you to feeling inadequate, less than, and again, pushing down that self-esteem. And as we think about this as it pertains to teens, that's just a new layer of heavy to kind of weigh on their shoulders. It's hard enough going into middle and high school and fitting in and making friends and finding who you are without being, ostracized and things like that. Now, with all of that input onto social media as well, that is significant. So I just think of ways where you can connect in real life with some of these people as well too, and not just looking at whatever that best part of that person's day is and trying to compare it against each other. The next thing I wanted to talk about was likes and validation, right? Likes. Who would have ever thought likes would have turned into such a big thing? Like, I like something. It just kind of makes me chuckle a little bit. But there's so much research that's talking about how receiving likes and comments can affect self-esteem, right? To the point that it can develop into a dependency to get that online validation as well, too. The fact that you have to go on, and that's why I also think that we see, pictures that used to be risque or things that you would, now people just keep progressing and I don't think there's anything else you can take off anymore, or how they can hide certain body parts and things like this, in order to get those likes and to get that validation. And I'm not even going to touch on OnlyFans today, right? That's an entire probably different episode. I don't have any experience as I've never signed up or used OnlyFans, but I certainly have thoughts because I'm well aware of how that platform works. But same kind of concept applies here of just that dependency on strangers validating what you're posting in order to feel good about yourself, right? I mean, there are stories after stories of teenagers who feel happier and more confident after receiving numerous likes and positive comments on their achievements, which just then go on to help reinforce their self-esteem. But the exact opposite can be happening as well, too. So again, another statistic to throw at you. There is a suggested correlation between higher level of social media validation, so the comments and likes, and the increased self-esteem. And the converse of that is true as well, too. So really, And I think, if we step aside and take a look at it from the parent side, I just think we need to be monitoring these things, right? I do think we need to see what's being said, what your kids are commenting and liking, and then also checking what's being sent to them as well, too. I just think it is that important. And if it becomes too much, I think that there could be a period where maybe a little detox would be in order, right? So you can slow down those likes and that comments and kind of wean someone off. When I worked in the treatment center, it was called a taper. If somebody was on a medication or something, or we would slowly take them off of it. In many instances, we would do a hard detox where it was just like, you are stopped. So something to keep in mind. I can see these things very similar through the eyes of kind of addiction, a drug addiction, as it applies to the phone and the digital and the social media as well too. I think also engaging in self-care activities is going to help boost your mood instead of staring at your phone and hoping for likes, right? I think doing things for yourself, right? That self-care, we've talked about it many times. I don't need to run through the entire list for you, but go Google self-care, find a few things that work for you, and let's get going in that, right? Let's get going in that direction as well too. The next point is one that's talked about often, but cyberbullying, right? So obviously cyberbullying can lead to low self-esteem, but I will take it a step further. Cyberbullying leads to suicide, right? And that is as serious as it gets. And I hold parents responsible for this as well too, and not just their kids, right? You need to be going through, if you are having any instances of where your son or daughter is bullying others. And by the way, bullying when I was a kid was a guy, picking on a nerd, pushing him around. Girls may be meaner now. I'm not sure of this, but I saw this in my ex-wife, and we had a teenage daughter at the time. And some of the girls, when they get into these cliques and what they would say, fortunately we had such a good kid there that she would kind of be like, Mom, look at what's going on. Look what's being said. Look what they're doing to this girl, and kind of report these things, which is the right thing to do. But it was ruthless. It was vicious. It was on their appearance. It was on their dress. It was on their, the financial. I mean, it was really intense stuff. And that has to be taken with the level of seriousness as anything else, right? As drug addiction. I'm sorry, it is right up there, because the consequences of this push people to the point where suicide seems like the only option, right? And that's completely unacceptable. Completely unacceptable. This online harassment not only does the low self-esteem thing, but it really pushes people to a point, and there's just no coming back from that, right? You can come back from a lot of things, but not from a completed suicide, right? So, what also happens is, to the person who's getting bullied, is that they start to internalize those negative comments, right? They start to believe that, and then if it's being reinforced and liked and reposted and shared, and there's a meme or whatever it is, right? This is going to really crush people. I mean, they may have to transfer schools. They may have to take significant measures in order to avoid this stuff. Again, another statistic for you as well, too. The prevalence of cyberbullying, they're saying 37% of young people have experienced some form or presence of cyberbullying. That's huge. 37%? I mean, that's 1 in 3 kids that are out there doing this. So, again, what can we do to kind of help aid in this? Block and report online harassers. Parents, I need you to be involved in this as well, too. If you need to take action, if you're seeing this, and reach out to other parents as well, too. You are responsible, because this is that important of an issue. Seek some support from friends and family or mental health professionals as well, too. And as always, back to self-care. If this is really starting to get at you, we may need to look at other drastic actions, but let's maybe put away the phone for a little bit and get outside of that and connect with, quote unquote, the real world, and find some ways to take care of yourself outside of being on the social media platforms. All right, next up, promoting authenticity on social media, right? So, what a novel concept, to not lie about or promote or puff up things on social media. Just kind of be who you authentically are. And those are some of my favorite accounts that I follow, right? And oftentimes I'm even like jealous. I'm like, not like, oh, I wish I was them, but it's just like, How cool is that you can just be yourself? You're an artist, you're a writer, you're a photographer, you're practicing audition tapes or something like that, and you can just naturally be yourself. You're not trying to take the best photo and take 37 photos in order to get the one where you're looking like it. Like, just be who you are authentically, without all the filters, without all the crazy things that we're all doing to try and look our best or put our best image out there to the world, right? I think the more that you can embrace this authenticity, now we're going to talk about increasing your self-esteem the right way as well too, right? Like, this is who I am, this is what I want to be, right? What this is not retouched photos, right? Like, not putting these unrealistic beauty standards out there in the world, just being who you are and not having the overly photoshopped things that are out there. I've even seen video shoots where they put people on, studio sets that look like private jets and things like that so people can take photos. How big are lies are people going to push out there in the world? It's really just sad. Here's another statistic for you as well, too. That 87% of people believe that authenticity on social media is more important when deciding which accounts to follow, right? So there's something. If you want to build some followers, being a little bit more authentic versus trying to be something that you're not, or trying to follow or recreate an account that you've seen that's out there that may be gaining followers and things like that. Or here's an idea. Don't worry about your follower count at all and just do what you want to do. And if things happen, great. And if they don't, so be it. It's not the end of the world, right? I fall into this trap as well, too, where it's like, well, you want to build followers for your podcast and your audience and your products and things like that. And it's like, yeah, but how far are you willing to go to do this? You want to be unique, you want to be funny, you want to be creative, but you got to stay in line with who you are, who your values are, who your personality is, and things like that. So, again, just thinking about authenticity as it comes to social media and how we could be doing that as well, too. Now think about, maybe the power of some supportive online communities as well, too, right? This doesn't all have to be negative. There are some, Facebook. I know a lot of folks on the younger side necessarily aren't hopping into Facebook, although I am surprised to see how many maybe secretly have those accounts and check into them. But I've recently joined some running groups, right, that I found online, and there's conversations and debate, and whether it's gear or whether it's tips or strategies or food. I found some lifting groups where I'm getting some pointers on proteins and exercises and things like that. So there is a positive that can be gained from this if you go and seek that out, right? So I like these kind of supportive online communities. Occasionally you'll get some idiots in there, but they'll usually kind of weed themselves out or get booted out of the group. But it's kind of fun being around like-minded individuals that can, help you learn something, help you improve at whatever the group is about, and trying to learn some new information, right? I think there's some real value in some of the positive that social can bring as well, too. But you got to be able to source that. And then you got to just be careful when you're in some of these groups as well, who you're interacting with, who you're taking information from, and obviously not to overshare too much personal information at the same time. It's a weird world out there. So, again, some other information, 70% of users report that online communities have helped them during challenging times, right? On the drug prevention, I'm in a lot of these different drug prevention groups and mothers groups and parents groups and, all kinds of different things. And I don't put public information out there. I'm struggling and this and that. That's not who I am necessarily, but I see a lot of people that do. And my first thought is like, ooh, geez Louise, like that's pretty personal and hard hitting. But you know what? People step up and provide supportive information and reach out. Hey, I had a similar thing. I went to this support group. I went to this. I did this, and kind of share and empathize. And I see these long conversations that kind of build out where I'm like, man, I would never do something like that. But then I see hundreds of comments that are supportive and encouraging and things like that. And I'm like, wow, maybe the world isn't such a terrible place after all. There is some good that can be had from kind of finding some of these more positive groups if you can get engaged with those on social media. And I encourage folks to maybe seek some of those out as well, too. Because, again, it doesn't all have to be negative. I think there is some positives that are out there for this. Then the last point I really had on social media and just how do we balance this, right? How are we able to balance having the phone in our pocket all the time, the social media, the accounts, the posting, and then how do we have our offline life, right? And what does that balance look like? I don't have the answer for you, but I do challenge you to think about what that potentially looks like. Every Sunday I have an iPhone, right? Every Sunday I get an email or screen ding or whatever, notification alert that says, your screen time increased 13% last week. It's at 8 hours and blah, blah, blah. And I'm always like, ugh, geez, that's terrible. Like, and it makes me want to reconsider how I do it. But it also highlights, how much I'm on my phone. So I do take notice of that and then I'll go through and it'll actually break down which things, apps, services that I'm using and for how long. So it does actually give me a moment to pause and reflect on it. Again, sometimes the nature of what I do is heavy on the social media, so I do have to spend some time on there, but I am very cognizant of also trying to put the phone down. For me, what does that look like? I go to the gym. I spend probably 2 hours at the gym every day, whether it's yoga or lifting or basketball or something like that. And maybe it's an hour in the morning, an hour at night, depending on how the schedule works. That is my time without phone. Like, never bring it with me. Don't want it with me. Don't want to read email. I put on some music. I put on a podcast. I'm doing my workout, and that's my kind of time away. And I found that to really work well for me. I like my time without distractions. In the morning, I read my news. I do read it on my phone, but I don't turn the TV on. I simply go through my news and go through my email and then set it down for a little while and go do some exercise, right? Or I'm having my cup of coffee. So I've found routines that work for me, but I'm very cognizant of this. And one of the things that I'm anxious to try, I haven't had a week-long vacation and who knows how long, but on the next time that I do, I want to be very intentional about how I choose to use my phone as well too. And what that means is it could be a break. It could be taking it out for an hour or two a day, maybe an hour in the morning and an hour at night to make sure, and not just carrying it with me, to really try and be more focused and present in those moments, right? And again, one last statistic for you as well too is that out of a recent survey, 65% of people believe they would be happier if they spent less time on social media, right? I mean, that's significant, right? So what does that tell you? Well, maybe we can spend a little less time on our social media than we currently do right now. So, I bring up all of these points just to kind of suggest new ways to think about your relationship with your phone, your relationship with social media, and also to really make sure that we're talking to our kids about this as well too. I just think that they're at the most vulnerable time. The cyberbullying scares the crap out of me just because the consequences of that are dire and you can't come back from it. Now, it's easy to look at the kids and go, kids, you're on your phone too much. When the reality is, and this was actually a contributing factor in my last divorce, is that the parents are sitting staring at their phones too. So I'm talking to you as well, mom and dad, right? When you're sitting there and your kid's trying to talk to you, and I hate myself when I catch myself doing it. My little 3-year-old girl's trying to tell me and I'm looking at my phone, I'm going, ugh, I don't like me. Like, put the damn thing down. Listen to your 3-year-old daughter and don't worry about whatever is coming through. That message can wait. That phone call can wait. Right? That text can wait. And I think if we're not showing that and being the example in our own house, how in the world can we turn around and just say, you need to do this, you need to do that, when we're just blatantly being hypocritical on the other side? Look, we're parents. We have different levels of responsibility. I get it. Right? But let's also be a model, an example of what that could look like as well too. Try and have that, 6:00 dinner time at home where everybody puts their phones on the kitchen table and actually has a conversation. Be intentional around this. And they're going to remember the stuff like that as well too, right? Find some time, block some time where you're actually just here with your loved ones present and not worried about social media. And last but not least, go to your kids' phones. I don't care. I don't care what you trust me, trust this. Trust but verify. Go through their phones, make sure it's that important that you know who they're talking to. And I'm not talking about, the pedophiles and things like that, although it's things that we need to be aware of. I'm thinking bullying. I'm thinking, what are they participating in? What are they looking at? All that type of stuff. It's that important. It's almost 2024. These are things we need to be super vigilant about as parents. So, okay. Good stuff. Well, again, this has been on my mind, phones, topics, social media. It's all stuff that we engage with every single day. Thought it needed its own show. So if you have thoughts, comments, anything like that, as always, drop a line. Go to the website, theunlicenssedcounselor.com. Follow me at The Unlicensed Counselor on Instagram. It's where I spend a lot of my time. Obviously, happy to chit-chat around any of these ideas. And if you got better ideas than what I've shared with here today, by all means, go ahead and post it. But if you can't, share, costs you nothing, helps us a ton, really helps kind of build our audience here with The Unlicensed Counselor as well. So my name is Steve Moak. I am The Unlicensed Counselor. Until next time, thank you very much.